Today, we talk about the hysterical response to the sentencing of Julius Malema yesterday for discharging a firearm in public. We also urge everybody watching this not to get commission fatigue. There is some stuff coming out of the Madlanga Commission that should be on the front page of the news if it wasn't for Julius Malema. And finally, I have to explain to you why Helen Zille is giving the city of Johannesburg chest pains. Welcome to the Political Insider. Remember, this episode is sponsored by our friends at Trade Nation. If you want to trade markets, any market in the world, Trade Nation is the place for you. Go and check out their website. The details are below. And you can trade any kind of financial instrument that you would like to access. It's all there. It's done in rands. It's all legit. One of the bigger companies in the world for this kind of thing. And they help to keep us on the air. So let's talk about the fallout that has followed the sentencing of Julius Malema. Just in case you were in a coma for the last couple of days, Julius Malema was found guilty of discharging a firearm in public, and the sentencing happened yesterday, and the magistrate, Toinette Olivier, sentenced him to an effective 5 years in jail. And needless to say, the red part of South Africa absolutely lost their minds. Now, what happened? In passing the sentence, she also did something that the Malema team were holding their breath for, and that was she allowed leave to appeal. They can appeal the sentencing, but not the conviction. The fact of the matter is he's guilty of discharging the firearm. That will stay with him. What they can appeal is the length of the sentence. They can say, no, this kind of thing deserved a different outcome in terms of what the punishment should be for the crime. But the crime they cannot appeal. They can only appeal the sentencing, right? And what is at stake here? What is at stake is that any politician in South Africa that has been sentenced for a crime where the sentence is 12 months imprisonment or more is immediately not able to sit in Parliament for a minimum of 5 years. This would be quite awkward for Julius Malema, and he's fighting it like mad to try and get that sentence down. And on top of it, the guy really doesn't want to go to prison. I mean, come on, he's a Gucci revolutionary. He's a wannabe Nelson Mandela, but without the prison thing. Prison isn't fun. He lives in a 50 million rand house in Sandhurst. It's a bit of a change of speed for somebody like Julius Malema. You know, he's 45 years old, and for the last 30 years of that, he's lived in absolute luxury. He does not want to go to jail, much like the rest of us who are watching this. So he is fighting this tooth and nail. And my Lord, did he assemble a celebrity team of lawyers. Tembeka Gubaitobe, Lawrence Hodes, these guys are celebrity lawyers. They don't get out of bed for a small amount of money, least of all going to a sweaty courtroom in East London. Somebody is footing a massive bill for this particular legal challenge. He also had representation at a number of courts around the country in case he wasn't granted the leave to appeal, and they could then put in an urgent application. They had legal teams in just about every major centre. I'm not sure why. They even had a helicopter in East London in case they had to ferry these celebrity lawyers to the High Court, the Eastern Cape High Court in Makanda. Once again, maybe you can fight economic freedom just by spreading the love, Julius. You clearly have a hell of a budget to spend on your legal defense. And once again, do you suppose anybody ever really is interested in lifestyle audits? Because he earns 2 million rand a year as a parliamentarian, he's a leader of the party, maybe he can get a few expenses paid, but helicopters, lawyers like this, wow, at least what you could say about Jacob Zuma is that he had the state's resources to spend. In this case, where does Julius Malema get the money from for this kind of defense? But anyway, that's a question I'm sure will come up at some point. Talking about Jacob Zuma, let's not forget that Julius Malema learnt at the feet of Jacob Zuma exactly what the Stalingrad strategy is. You would have heard that term a lot. Stalingrad strategy, it harks back to the Second World War, where the Russians, being invaded by the Nazis, decided that they had a strategy for the city of Stalingrad, and that was to literally post soldiers literally in every doorway, to say, if you want to get through the city, you're going to have an individual battle through every building. There's going to be men with guns through every doorway. You are going to have to fight your way through here. And so it's going to be with Julius Malema. But I was really taken by his speech after the trial, where he addressed a large crowd of EFF supporters. And you would have sworn they won the case, the way they celebrated the outcome. But he immediately set on the judge, calling Toinette Olivier a racist, stupid, somebody who doesn't read, a member of AfriForum, and making the wrong decision. And immediately it got my mind going to a place where just recently we saw the U.S. ambassador, the newly appointed U.S. ambassador, arrive in South Africa, Leo Brent Bazell. And he addressed a conference where he said that his words were, I don't care what the judge has said about Kill the Boer song. In his mind, it's an illegal song. And he was démarched. He was dressed down by the government by saying, how dare you question the outcome of South African courts? At a different time, perhaps if the president of the US wasn't distracted with other things, could have caused a diplomatic incident. But yeah, you've got a prominent politician doing something 10 times worse, not just questioning the outcome of the court, but questioning the competence of the judges. This is 10 times worse than what the US ambassador had to say. I am sitting on the edge of my seat waiting for President Cyril Ramaphosa to do something about it. Because as our government said, you can't come along and criticize South African judges like this. That's what they said to the US ambassador. I would be interested to see when we're going to hear that kind of condemnation of what Julius Malema had to say. I've also been surprised by a number of people that claimed that the sentencing was disproportionate to the crime. And that includes somebody like an attorney by the name of Martin Hood, who claims to be a specialist in the Firearms Control Act, who said that this is a very harsh sentence. Now, let's understand here that Malema shoots into the sky. You don't know where that bullet lands. We saw not too long ago a 9-year-old child get killed in a similar situation to this, because the bullet comes out of the sky and it lands and killed the kid. What is the sentence then? Surely the sentence is the same. Let's imagine a scenario where I am speeding down a neighborhood road, drunk out of my mind, and policemen stop me a couple of 100 meters short of a school crossing. Now they arrest me for drunken driving and speeding and everything else. Am I meant to get a lenient sentence because I didn't kill any children? I don't understand the logic that says this sentence is harsh. Can the sentence only be harsh if a bullet actually hit somebody? And isn't it time for South Africa to start applying the law as it's written? That's what the magistrate has done in this case. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see what is going to happen here. The real question, of course, is what effect will this have on the political career of Julius Malema and the fortunes of the EFF? And I'm going to go into a lot more detail on this in my weekly update on our State of the Nation channel later today. I would urge you to listen in there, because the outcome may be different to what you think. So if you really want to know what my thoughts are on where this could lead to for those particular entities, Malema himself and the party, as well as politics in South Africa, watch the weekly update on the State of the Nation. While you're doing that, why not come to our State of the Nation breakfast, where we're going to be talking about this? There is no doubt, because I know that one of our panelists, Bonsai Shongwe, has got extremely strong opinions about the Malema case. Come along to our State of the Nation breakfast on the 6th of May. Bonsai Shongwe will be on stage, and so will Dr. Frans Cronje. one of South Africa's top analysts, especially as to global politics. 6th of May in Sandton. Go to our website, sona.co.za, and book your spot at this breakfast. Spots are running out, so I would urge you to act quite quickly. As I said in the introduction, let us not get commission fatigue, right? The headlines have been taken with the Julius Malema case, and understandably, and it's hard to actually read an article about what went on in the Madlanga Commission. But I've got to tell you that for the last couple of days, the former chief of the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department, Julius Mkhwanazi, has been on the stand. And this guy is really, he was already facing legal challenges. He's going to have bigger problems after this. The guy was clearly a conduit for crime. He was the link, together with his friend Mike van Wyk. These guys were working hand in glove in helping Kat Matlala to steal state money. This is an open and shut case, and Julius Mkhwanazi is central to what was going on in the city of Ekurhuleni. And if Julius Mkhwanazi, together with his the political assistance of Imogen Mashazi, who's also facing criminal charges, were the facilitators in Ekurhuleni, then, as we heard last week, Sergeant Fanny Nkosi, together with the political help of the city of Tshwane CFO Gareth Mnisi, were the facilitators in the city of Tshwane. Now, do you suppose these criminal syndicates just forgot about the biggest city that happens to be in the middle, like Johannesburg? Let's not forget that the Johannesburg budget, the city of Johannesburg's budget, is almost equal to the budget of both the Ekurhuleni and city of Tshwane. So either the criminal syndicates decided that our politicians in Johannesburg are great, or our police are just world class, or perhaps they forgot about Johannesburg. Perhaps they didn't realize that we've got hospitals considerably bigger than Tembisa Hospital. Perhaps they forgot that there's security tenders in Johannesburg that will dwarf anything in the city of Tshwane. Perhaps our criminal syndicates are just not good at what they do. I doubt it. But as this crime comes out, so it's going to start shining a light on the other metros, because there's no doubt that once you have this business plan, you implement it. So while we talk about it, Julius Mkhwanazi, he really made a mess of things. And what has been staggering has been the level of evidence that evidence leaders have presented to the Madlanga Commission. It is damning. It just shows you that every conversation you ever had on WhatsApp, etc., will come out in court. So just know that. But today is going to be very interesting, because the aforementioned city of Tshwane head of finance, Gareth Mnisi, is going to face the Madlanga Commission. And he's the poster child for what the modern day crooked politician, public servant looks like. And he's going to be appearing at the Madlanga Commission. And just this week, we heard that the city of Tshwane mayor, God bless her, Dr. Nasipi Moya from Action SA, suspended Gareth Mnisi. Perhaps she was tipped off when she looked inside the garage and saw one of Mnisi's cars. Perhaps it was, she didn't really get a chance to see the 15 million rand house he's busy building in Bryanston. But it's strange that she only acts when the Madlanga Commission comes along. Because this guy got divorced and he had to declare his assets, and just listen to the vehicles that he's got. I know we've said this before, but this list is staggering. A Porsche Targa, a Porsche 911 Turbo, a BMW X6, 2 Range Rovers, one with a personalized number plate bearing his name and his date of birth, 2 BMW 125i's, a BMW X6, a Mercedes-Benz CLA, a Toyota Hilux single cab, I presume that he uses when he takes his dogs on walks, a Volkswagen Golf R8, and, just because everyone should have one, a Maserati Levant. Right? He is in the Paul Mashatile school of investing your public servant salary, that he's able to have these kind of assets. Now, one of the outcomes of the Madlunga Commission may be to shine a light on the parties who have growth ambitions. Right? I'm not talking about a party like Al Jamar that is just there, as one can see, just to go and get a better payoff. We see that in KZN with the NFP. We see that in Port Elizabeth with the Northern Alliance, or whatever we call them. Those are parties of one person. They're available for the highest bidder, good for them. But parties that like to pass themselves off as parties, Action SA, Patriotic Alliance, they like to tell voters that they are the future. But they are the people enabling this kind of looting. We expect the comrades to loot. It's the parties that facilitate this by giving the votes to these parties that should be questioned. That's where that can be the difference between a city being run properly and a city being run by criminals. Talking about a city run by criminals, my favorite city, city of Johannesburg. Once again, the campaigning of Helen Zille is causing chest pains for the city of Johannesburg. Her latest issue with the city, we've seen her swimming in potholes, we've seen her doing a whole lot of things. Now, she was blocked from accessing the city of Johannesburg's metro center. This is a massive building that's in the scheme of buildings not that old. But it was hastily abandoned in 2023, quoting security concerns and fire risks. The only difference is that it was abandoned in a hurry and everything was left behind. Now, there is stuff in that building that is of vital importance. There are house plans. There are the history of Johannesburg. There is paperwork. There's everything that the city needs to run in that building. The departure from the building was not orderly. It was done in haste. And it seems to that perhaps it may be, perhaps allegedly, who knows, linked to the fact that the city then needed to rent properties from some of the tenderpreneurs, right? Because here you've got a massive civic center on the hill in Braamfontein that was built for purpose, not 40 years ago. And it has to be abandoned. So they abandon this building. They do nothing with the documents. The documents are literally lying around. The building is now not maintained. There have been incidents of looting. There's been all kinds of things, but no plan to fix the thing. What is up here? What is going on? But anyway, the point is that the Democratic Alliance has got every right, because they also represent ratepayers in Johannesburg, and they've got a right to go and see what's going on in the building. But the city of Johannesburg doesn't want to let them in. So how is the city being run? Well, it's being run on a haphazard basis. They do give the odd bit of permission for manual retrieval, where they'll let somebody go into the building to go and find a file that's lying on the floor somewhere. But at what point is the city going to let the residents, the people that actually pay the bills, know what's going on in the Johannesburg Metro Centre? Helen Zille shining a light on this. The ANC and their parties, the partners, EFF, Patriotic Alliance, are making it very, very, very easy for the Democratic Alliance to campaign. And the recent statement by Herman Mashaba of Action SA saying that he will never work with Helen Zille means that there's a straight choice. If you're voting for Action SA, you're voting for the ANC. That's the only conclusion that one can draw. But anyway, we'll see how this plays out. There's a long time and a short time before this election happens at the end of the year, and a lot is changing. Thank you so much for joining us on the Political Insider. Support Trade Nation. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you again on the Political Insider.